Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep-end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
It's time to bring on the blooms at the Home Depot with Spring Garden Deals. Find savings on hanging baskets and flowers to brighten your backyard or any space that needs instant color. Then get everything you need to plant and protect them with low prices guaranteed on soil and mulch. Dig into Spring Garden Deals for 4 days at the Home Depot. Now through May 10th. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Unlock over $3,500 in business and travel value annually with statement credits on select purchases from brands like Dell, Hilton, and Adobe, and other benefits. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Based on total potential value of statement credits on select purchases and other benefits, enrollments required, monthly and other limits and terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Hey everybody, this is The Youth Rocks, and you're listening to the Hook Rocks podcast, brought to you by Jay Scott. I'm his son, The Youth Rocks, and go get some popcorn and some water, because this is going to be a fun episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hook Rocks. This is Jay Scott. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying your day. Once again, we are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a great network of music-related podcasts. Check them out at pantheonpodcast.com. There's podcasts for every music style, every music genre. So please check that out. I'm sure you can find something other than the Hook Rocks that will interest you. I know Carmen DePeace and Vinny Appice are part of the Hangin' and Bangin' podcast, as well as Martin Popoff, the rock historian, and Mistress Carrie out in Boston. My guys, Tom and Zeus, on the Shout Out Loudcast, as well as Baco on Cobras and Fire. You can follow them on Twitter at Pantheon Pods, also on Facebook, and you can follow the Hook Rocks on Twitter at the Hook Rocks, as well as any podcast platform where you do get your podcasts. Amazon, Spotify, Apple. We're available everywhere. And don't forget to set your app to automatic download. So whenever the latest and greatest Hook Rocks podcast drops, you get it right to your phone and your day instantly becomes better. Some people think that as well. But we've got a great show for you today. And looking forward to conversing here with Anne Estella. She's a repeat guest. This is her third time being on the podcast. I'm very excited to have her. What's going on, Anne?
Well, thanks for having me back again. I've got to know, do you know all of that off by heart, or are you reading it? Because I'll be very, very impressed if you know.
That's all by heart.
That's it. Well, yeah, I take my hat off to you. That's incredible. I mean, I can never remember anything, so I have to write everything down. But yeah, things are great. So it's really, really nice to speak to you again. Thanks for offering to have me as a guest again.
Yeah, because we've had some conversations. A lot of our conversations have been geared towards new rock and the differences in the UK versus the US. And now you've developed this show called AMP that everyone's excited about, myself included. and want to talk to you more about that, where the development came from or how that was all developed, how you found an outlet for it, what's next, and how excited you are.
Well, I can answer the last bit. I mean, I'm super excited. So, we just filmed the pilot less than 2 weeks ago. Just got the footage back from the production team. So that's now in post-production. And I can't wait to see it. I haven't looked at the footage yet. Yeah, my editor has. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm aware, it looks good. But I mean, it's got to look great. So good is not going to cut it. It needs the finished product needs to be ready to go out there and put on TV screens. So that's what I'm hoping for.
When you're involved in this and you have the pilot being filmed and you basically see your vision being finally put out there, right? What is that experience like? Because I know with talking with you over the last year or so, you've put a lot of time, a lot of thought. You know, I know that you had a lot of different ideas and then you basically focused on this one thing and really getting that off the ground. But that takes a lot. It takes a lot just to come up with the idea. And then what that idea entails and moving forward and what you need and what I'm sure you learned a lot through this process. I'm sure that you were stressed out a lot during this process. I think I pretty much safe to say that you were, but when you're on stage and you're filming it and all these things are happening, what's that like for you?
By the time we got to the performance side of the recording, I was actually quite chilled out. It was the bit before, getting to the venue, meeting the camera crew, getting everything set up, getting the pyrotechnics sorted out, making sure the bands were going to turn up on time, getting their riders sorted out. Oh God, those riders. That's another story. But yeah, that was stressful, just going through the scenes and then sort of making last minute changes to things, saying, well, no, actually, we're not going to do it that way. We'll just do it this way instead. So all the bits that we recorded before the audience actually arrived. So that would be the links between the various parts of the episode. We tried to do as much of it script free as we could. In fact, I've got to say it is all script free. There was a very, very loose script, just as a reminder, basically, of what we need to say, who we need to introduce next, and little bullet points of things, to remember, almost kind of how I do my interviews, really. But we more or less abandoned that and just, it was ad lib. And that's how I wanted it to be with me and Brad, just sort of having a bit of banter and just saying what came to mind and what felt right at the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was stressful filming that. We did multiple takes of each section, except for the band interviews. We only needed one take for them. Which was great. So I'm delighted with how that went. The bands were fantastic to interview. I don't think that could have gone any better. The evening bit, it was almost like an event of two halves, because of course we had the filming for the show itself. So we had people coming on the guest list. It was a guest list only event, free event. They didn't know what to expect. They were there so the band had somebody to play to and to get that atmosphere. And that's what I want to get across with the show, that real energy and rawness you get of being at a live rock show. So that all came out beautifully. I had people saying, well, we didn't know what to expect when we got here. We thought it would be like all having to sit down in rows and watch the bands. I thought, no, it's nothing like that. It needs to capture exactly what you'd see at the show. The only slight differences is, of course, we had pyro. You don't normally get that at little sort of pub, local venues and that sort of thing. And that was nice. The bands weren't expecting it, even though I had told them. They'd obviously forgotten about that. And the loud booms at the beginning, you could see some of them nearly flying off the stage. Right. It was fantastic. And that added a bit of excitement to it. And, I like I say, I was trying to treat the audience as guests. I wanted them to have that real VIP experience and not be considered as punters, and they're there to buy alcohol, which of course they were buying alcohol. But, I thought, well, what can I do just to make it a bit extra special for them? So I had sweets, chocolates, and while the bands are playing, of course, I go around like a hostess should, offering people sweets and chocolates. And, I've had so many people say to me since then, that's a really nice touch. And I thought that's something I'm going to carry through now. For, if this all goes to plan and we get an episode, a full series, I want to do that, make everyone feel at home and welcome and like they're important and valued and that we really want them to be there as part of the audience. So I'm going to be going around and offering people, little nibbles while the acts are on. And I don't know, just something that I like doing. So
Nice touch, yeah.
Yeah, I like being a hostess. So that was great. And I had such amazing feedback. The bands themselves just couldn't have been any better. They thought they were coming just to play to a few people, probably. I mean, that's what I've heard from some of them. They didn't know what to expect. Thought it was just like a couple. They had the best night. We had a packed venue on a Wednesday night. You couldn't have asked for any more than that. It was amazing. I had a load of members of the press there, from the smaller magazines and webzines, and everyone had such a good time. And it was just amazing to hear the feedback afterwards. It really was. So, I'm absolutely delighted with how that went off. And now we've got to try and organise, get the pilot edited and out there and try and organise, hopefully, a series going forward.
Yeah, you got to find a home for it now.
Talks, yes. So it is exciting.
So outside of Massive, the bands were who?
The Massive weren't actually part of it. They're based in Australia, and they had to cancel the UK tour because of issues with visas and the whole COVID thing wasn't making anything any easier. And of course, that's a big expense as well. Mm-hmm. All tests and everything you need to have to come over now. So Brad, being a frontman of Massive, actually lives in Germany. Yeah. So he was able to come over. So we had him co-hosting, and that was nice. People over here haven't seen him for ages, so it's a nice little, it made it extra special, I think, having him there. Definitely. We had Gorilla Riot playing, Bastet and Stevie, R. Pierce and the Hooligans. So 3 completely different styles of rock. Each of them incredible live bands. And again, nobody knew the lineup. And this is something, again, I want to carry forward. Secret lineups. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no headliners and no support acts. So if you're good enough to be asked to come on the show, then you're good enough to play in any slot. It was, we're giving everyone equal time. We did give Stevie an extended set at the end because he had travelled from across the country all the way down south to come and be there. And again, it was a nice surprise for the audience. But as far as the TV show is going to be concerned, it's going to be the same amount of songs per band.
So when you decided to move forward with Amped and put your focus in on this show, how did you, because I know you were thinking about it doing a lot of different things. You had a lot of different ideas and you honed in on this. What was it about this idea that made you want to move forward with it?
I think because nobody else is doing anything like it, which of course in itself is a bit of a worry. Obviously the talent is there, and we've got so many festivals now, radio stations, all picking up on these bands and promoting them in their own way. I've done the reviewing, the writing, YouTube, and I felt like there must be a bigger outlet to get the bands out there and to bring that excitement back to live music. And my idea really is twofold. One, to get these bands in front of an audience that might never have even heard of them before. They might not even be rock fans. Hopefully the show will be engaging enough to really, make anybody want to watch it and tune in and discover new bands themselves. And also people watching for them to see the energy of the live show and think, oh, wow, I want to go out and see my local scene, go and discover local bands. So we really need to invigorate, our local music scenes wherever we live, especially after COVID. So many venues have really struggled as well during this time. So, so the idea is really twofold, wider audience and get people out seeing new bands.
Yeah, I think that's such an important part that you want to focus on is that live show, because so many people, especially young people, have never really experienced what it is to be at a rock and roll show. And I've always said that once you're a kid and you go to a rock show, it never leaves you. It stays with you because it's so powerful. There's so much synergy between the audience and the crowd. The audience and the band. And I think that's a very important part because you're right. There's not a lot of shows that focus on the live portion of rock music. And it's one of the things that I feel that why rock music is in the position where it is because no one's willing to showcase that power of the live show.
And when you think about live music shows that we do have, they're very sterile. They tend to be in a studio. The band plays. There's no interaction with the audience. And I wanted the opposite of that. I wanted to see the bands interacting with the audience, see them interacting together, really for it to feel like you are there in that moment. And, after the show, I had a couple of people say to me, there's a lot of F words there. You're going to be doing a lot of bleeping out and everything. I said, no, we're not doing bleeping out. I'm allowing them to say whatever they want. I said, I've got 2 rules for the band. No slander of anybody, and do not discuss anything illegal. Apart from that, you can say whatever you like. Yeah. F words, whatever you want. And that's it, and hopefully any channel that we put this in front of is not going to have a problem with that. And if they do, then that won't be the right home for it. Yeah,
absolutely. I just, I remember growing up, they had shows like that. And I used to love those shows because it made you want to go see those bands. It made you want to be a part of that experience. And it's such an important thing with music today. I mean, the music is there for rock music, right? All these great albums have been released in 2021 and probably the third and fourth quarter of 2020 into this year. And it's probably going to continue in 2022. And that's great. The music portion of it has arrived. There's so much quality music, but now to have a young person, which rock needs to really connect with, see that presence on stage, see that live show, see that interaction. I mean, I don't know what kid would not want to be a part of that. Like, wow, I got to go see that. That's so awesome. I want to check that out. And knowing my own son, who's gone to concerts with me and gone to shows, and how he feels about it and how he loves going, it's because of that. All these shows, it's in his blood now. Like, he has to go see a live show. And I think it's a very important focus for you, who has this idea, who has this great idea to show that, because I think that's the logical next step in this resurgence is start to show, not like you said, these sterile live environments that are in a studio and there's no crowd there. There's no back and forth. I agree with you. That's missing when they do that stuff, because it creates so much energy that I think people don't appreciate when they see these live streams in the studios.
Absolutely. And the bands really feed off the audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can't really replicate that in a studio, I don't think. I took my own daughter with me, 15-year-old, to a gig not that long ago, Empire, Hollow Star.
Great bill.
Absolutely loved it. And I think her friends, on the whole, would never have been to an environment like that before. You have the big, not bands, big pop groups, shall we say, that, come over or, play in the arenas. And you could be so far away from them wherever you're sat. You don't really, it's completely the opposite of the local live show.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to really get across, not what it's like to be in a massive stadium watching a pop group from a million miles away, sat up in a god somewhere where they look like tiny dots on the stage. It's chalk and cheese to me. I would much rather be in that small venue where I can actually see the band and feel like you're part of it,
Yeah, I mean, that energy is irreplaceable. You can't describe it, and you can't get it anywhere else. It really is something that's very unique to a rock show. And wanting to show that, for this idea that you have is a pretty smart thing to do, because I think that's going to attract bands. Bands are going to be on this show. And I think it's going to attract, young people. I mean, a show like this is going to be one of those, venues or avenues that like kids talk about the next day at school. Like, hey, did you see the show? Did you see that? And that creates a buzz in itself. This show's not going to be on prime time. It's going to be at 11 o'clock at night or at midnight, where, they'll stay up and they'll watch it. But that creates the conversation. That creates the buzz about it. I mean, when it's kind of that underground and everyone's kind of sneaking around and watching it and trying to get it, that's what adds to that momentum and that energy from the show into the the viewing of a young audience. So I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, I know you asked about some.
I don't want to mention any names.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I have been in talks with a few channels. I'm now in other talks, but there was one that was interested quite some time ago when I submitted a pitch to them, and I got in touch again. I said, well, we're going to be recording the pilot now. Things are back up and running, and the sort of response I got was, okay, well, we may be interested in licensing it. Which bands have you got playing? And based on the fact that they hadn't heard any of these bands before, they said, oh, well, we don't think it's going to be for us because, our audience won't have heard of them. And that for me is completely missing the point of the whole show. My point is not to put the big bands on there and to get people to realize, and there's so much new talent that they haven't heard of. It's just waiting to be discovered.
Right.
That's the whole point. So straight away I thought, okay, that is not going to be the right channel for this. If they think that that's what the show was going to be, just having well-known bands and as a showcase, then that's not going to happen. Obviously we'll be getting some bands that are more well-known than others to play, but most of them, by and large, are going to be relatively unknown. Certainly, abroad. So yeah, like I said, talks. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and with that way of thinking, your focus is on new artists and bands. And let's face it, new rock bands, other than a handful of new rock bands, really are not well known, right? It really is become an underground movement, an underground scene, and you're trying to showcase what's happening underneath the surface. And I think that, is something that I would find attractive to watch, because the big bands or the bands that are well known, they already have, they can snap their fingers and they're going to be on a show or they're going to be on an outlet, and that's great for them. Of course. But the whole idea of Amped is to really focus on these bands that are great, that are incredibly awesome, that people need to see and people need to showcase. And exactly. You're absolutely right. An outlet that thinks that you're going to have this band or that band because they're well known is completely missing the point of what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get it completely. Yeah. So hopefully lots of other people will as well.
I think so. I think, there's always going to be an outlet for that type of show. Like I said, it's never going to be on a major network. And I don't know if anybody wants it on a major network, because then you have less control over it. Then those networks are telling you who you need to have on and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of how it works. But when you're when you're with an outlet that kind of acts as a partnership, like, hey, believes in what you do and is all on board with it, that's like the perfect scenario. That's what anybody would want, Of
course, yeah. As far as the lineups go, I have a certain criteria for who I'd want on. Even Brad doesn't dictate the lineup. I said, you leave that to me. You can trust me to pick great lineups.
Sure. You've been around so many bands over the last couple of years, and
that's it. And I know so many bands. I know who I like working with. I know who's going to be a pain in the ass, and that I wouldn't want to work with. I know who really puts in the effort. You see, you can't help but notice the bands that really want to do well. And the bands that have the talent, that have the stage presence, the charisma, the energy, everything you'd be looking for. Mm-hmm. And those are the bands I want to work with, the ones that, that I really feel deserve that opportunity to get out there and get themselves more well known.
As far as you going through this process and going through this journey, what did you learn the most during this whole journey?
That everyone's got an opinion.
They do.
Yeah, about everything, and to just listen to your gut instinct. Not to think that other people know better than you do. Mm-hmm. This has been my baby for a while now, and I've got a very clear path for it. Got clear idea. There's very few things that I have asked for advice for when it comes to this. And, I think part of it is to do with having that idea. Part of it is to do with kind of things falling into place naturally and finding their own sort of way, which has happened a lot. and the people that I've been involved with along the way have had an input and have made me think of different ideas. But ultimately, I have the final say as to how it goes. And I quite like being the boss.
Absolutely. I find that too, is everybody wants to tell you how to do your thing. And, from the very beginning with starting this podcast, I always believed that slow and steady and building it is the best way, because when you build something over time, it's a lot more sturdy and it's a lot more, kind of, and something that rises fast always falls fast, right? Because you put in this high energy to get to there, and then you're there, and then you got to maintain it. Whereas you slowly build it, you're building a good base. And I think that's very important. I think a lot of people, especially in today's day, want everything right away.
Yeah.
And I think, in part I'm like that too, but I also know that the best route is to do it the right way. Don't cut any corners. Don't do something for quick gain or immediate gain, because it's the after effect that you got to worry about and keep it going. So,
yeah, there will always be people judging and criticizing. And I feel that the more successful something is, the more criticism it's going to get. You get people are jealous. People think, oh, well, I can do it better. Or you think, well, if they could do it better, why haven't they done it? People, you just get, even on Twitter, people say, oh, well, have you thought of this? Or have you thought of that? Or well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you have me co-hosting it? And, it's like, no, I've done everything the way I've done it for a reason, know? So, other people aren't necessarily going to see what goes on behind the scenes and the processes have gone through and why we're doing things a certain way. But it's working so far. So, all being well, I've, managed to secure funding for a series,
awesome.
Which I can't go into any more details about.
That's great.
But, I'm looking at doing sponsorship deals as well, and to get the show on the road, which is a very nice expression that I'm not sure I've ever used before. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do, to get the show on the road. And there's a lot of things you can do with it,
Yeah, this is all positive. All positive.
Yeah. We can even do that.
That's what you want. You want to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Anne, is you're already successful because your vision has come to be. You filmed this pilot. That's a success in itself. And I think, a lot of people, view success as something different. You had this vision. You put the time and work into it. You put this all together. You've got the pilot. Now there's a lot more work to do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're already a success. Anyone, for me, that is able to fulfill their vision, to me, is great, is awesome. That's successful in its own right.
You know what? It's really nice to hear that, because I don't know if I'm super hard on myself, but I've never really thought of it in that way, in those terms. Like, I know it's a successful evening and that went well. Whether the pilot itself is going to be a success depends on how it all looks and how it's all put together. So I've not really thought of it as a success yet. I thought, if the end product, helps to get the show going and is exactly how I wanted it to be, then it will be successful. But I feel like, for me, it's too soon to say, oh yeah, it was a success. So I've not really seen it like that. I just, it might be, hopefully it will be, but it's easy to get ahead of yourself. And yeah, of course, I'm already thinking ahead. I'm already trying to plan ahead, but it really does depend on how good the finished product is, as far as the pilot is concerned. So yeah, try not to congratulate myself just yet, but we'll see.
I don't know if congratulating yourself is obviously, but when you have a vision, and now the way I look at it, there's different stages of success, right? You had the idea and you planned everything out and you built it and you were able to get and film a pilot. Okay. That's pretty much 99% of the people who have a vision never go even that far. Okay. And that's successful. So that first part that you've done is the success. Now it's the second part. It's the making it look the way you want it to look, presenting the show, and then now, trying to sell the show. That's a whole different thing. But I think up to this point, maybe I'm not going to congratulate you because you don't want to, but I think you are successful by doing that. I think you are. I think
time will tell. Time will tell.
I think it's absolutely amazing that because I'm sure there were points in this journey that you were like, screw this, this is way too much of a challenge, way too difficult, but you kept going, and that's important.
You know what? There weren't actually those moments. I think because I'd so long to plan it with COVID, that actually felt like I wasn't doing enough. I kept thinking, surely I should be more stressed, or surely I should have more things that I need to plan and prepare and do. But I'm quite a methodical person, so of course I had my lists, and I don't know, it just kind of all took care of itself gradually. Like you said, working slowly, and slow and steady has always been my way. I was never the first to finish an exam. I was writing right up until the end and reading it over again like 2 or 3 times to make sure I hadn't missed anything. So that's how I work, and it never got where it felt like I couldn't do it or it wasn't going to happen. We had the date for it to take place. We had the venue, we had tickets going out, we had Brad coming over, we had the bands. So as far as I was concerned, it had to go ahead, so once you've got all those things in place, the momentum kind of just takes you along with it and until it actually comes to fruition. So yeah, it's for me, it was always going to happen, and I try, even though if there were small setbacks now and then, which I don't really think there were any I can think of, but anything that did come up was just dealt with and was never a big issue, certainly not big enough for me to ever think of throwing the towel in.
As you to kind of go back, you started doing the YouTube videos and trying to create interest in these bands by doing that. Has this always been the end goal for you to create something like this, or was this developed as you were doing the YouTube interviews and said, hey, I need to do something more, I need to do something bigger for this genre of music?
Yeah, I think the second one. I never had the idea of doing a TV show like years ago. Although when I was younger, I did want to be a TV presenter, and I did go to an interview for that. Oh, that was terrible. It was for a children's TV show. I was a goth at the time, and I turned out, I don't know what I was thinking going to that, but that didn't go well. And obviously I didn't get the job, but I love TV. I like talking to people, meeting people. I used to pretend I was interviewing people and kind of mess about it. So yeah, I've always loved that sort of thing. But it was from YouTube that then I thought, well, yeah, it's not giving the bands as much exposure as I'd hoped. The problem with YouTube, and I've never paid for advertising or sponsorship on YouTube or anything, which I guess if I had, that might help a bit more. But it tends to be the fans of the bands that I'm interviewing, that the ones that's going to watch it. That's how they find out about it. There'll be something on the band's, Facebook pages or my social media, and they'll go and see the video. So my subscriber numbers never got as high as I wanted them to be, because these bands, a lot of them that I've interviewed are really, unknown bands, and some of them are a bit bigger. And of course, interviews with bands like Master Wagons always you'd get more views because they've got a bigger fan base. But other than people putting that search in, interview with whichever band, they wouldn't find my channel, wouldn't find these interviews. So I thought that's not what I want to do going forward. And, when I filmed the pilot, people said, oh, will I be able to watch it on YouTube? And I thought, well, to me, that would be a real last resort. I don't want this to go on YouTube. If I can't get it licensed and on TV, then yeah, or even maybe the pilot, if that doesn't actually end up being televised as part of the series, then yeah, the pilot could go on YouTube. But but apart from that, yeah, I thought I need to move on to the next thing. And this isn't being done. You get a lot of other YouTube channels focusing on music and podcasts and whatever, but this became my end goal, pretty quickly.
Was there a specific moment where this is what you wanted to chase? This is what you wanted to do?
There might have been. I can't remember when it was. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, like, was there like a eureka moment and thought that when I thought, oh, let's put this on TV? And I don't think so. And I'm going to give that some thought because, I've got a great memory for things that happened years ago and back in my childhood, and my memory for things that happened yesterday is much shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you get older, you can't remember these things.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we're the same age, so you definitely know. There might well have been a moment when it came to me to do this, but I couldn't say when that was or what I was doing at the time.
As far as the name of the show, Amped, how did that develop?
That was purely by Twitter poll. So we made a list of maybe 200 possible names. It was so hard at first thinking of anything. And then gradually we just ended up with loads and loads of names, and some we really quite liked and thought, can't decide. Should we do this? Should we do that? And I ended up doing Twitter polls and just asking people to vote for their favourites. So we had, I think, was it 4 you could have was the maximum. And then we narrowed it down to about 20 names, I think. And we put the polls again, and then the winner of those polls kind of went up against each other. And Amped was the clear winner in the end. Little did I know there was a YouTube channel called Amped without the E, AMP''D, which isn't in existence anymore. But I had no idea about that anyway. And of course, Forge Amp is something that I'm affiliated to as well, that supports local bands. So Amp just seems to be, a word that people associate with rock, and it kind of got the message across there just in one word. If you're going to be watching something called Amped, it's going to be about loud music. So we didn't really need anything more than that. And we just went with the one word in the end, Amped. And everyone seems to like it. It looked good written down. I couldn't go for AMP''D because I couldn't have the correct words, with all the letters there. I'm not much one for text speak and that sort of thing. I like to have everything in full, so it had to be Amped.
As far as the current rock scene in the UK, obviously we've dealt with the pandemic. Obviously, I think the UK is a little bit behind the US in terms of venues being open and people being able to move freely about. Aside from the quality of music that we talked about, are you seeing the same type of resurgence where you're at as we are here in the US?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. And honestly, it's really hit and miss over here at the moment. The bigger bands seem to be having no trouble. The older bands, shall we say. I went to see the Levelers last night, a band from the 90s. Absolutely packed venue at Manchester Academy. You can hardly move. I couldn't get it. I was so far away from the stage that I actually didn't see a single member of the band the whole time I was at the gig. Couldn't see anyone. I was way back. So that was packed. Other gigs not doing so well, and particularly, unfortunately, a lot of the new wave of classic rock bands, festivals that are showcasing them have had to cancel at the last minute. They've been pulled with lack of sales, and it's not going so well everywhere. So I think certainly I can't say things are back to how they were before. I mean, the smaller bands have never had as much of an audience as I felt they deserved. So looking ahead to 2022, there's a lot of festivals coming up with really good lineups. A lot of the emerging rock bands are showcased there, and the bigger festivals don't seem to be affected too much by what's happened. People are still going out to those. So, hopefully that will draw a big enough crowd to see the bands. But as for small gigs, hit and miss, I'd say. Hit or miss.
Yeah, I think when things started to first open up in the U.S., I think something similar, was happening. A lot of stuff was 25% full. I think a lot of stuff even got canceled because of lack of ticket sales. There was a festival, I want to say back in May, early June, that had Chevelle, Evanescence, Dirty Honey, and a bunch of bands that got canceled because of lack of ticket sales. Miles Kennedy was on that bill.
Really?
Yeah. So I think, when you look back at the first part of the year, there was still a lot of hesitancy of people coming out. And I think as time has moved forward to now, I think people are so hungry for a live show that, a lot of shows that I've gone to have had great crowds. But in the beginning, when people first started to, when things first started to open up, there was a lot of cancellations. There was a lot of reschedulings because I just think that people were still hesitant. You hear on the news this variant, that variant, and people still are not comfortable to come to a show. So I think a lot of that has to do with the success of a small band or a small venue with an unknown band. That I think over time that's going to come back. It's just going to require a lot of patience because now, the last 3 shows I went to, the venues were pretty full, and that I would say back in May and June that wouldn't have happened because I think people were still hesitant. But the music's there, and I think if anything that's good, it will be found. Right? People will find it. And I think the quality of music, I was talking to Baz about a month ago, and, they've had a good fan base for a while, but they've even seen their fan base grow, over the summer and seen, bigger crowds and better crowds. And I think, there's a lot of stops and starts because of the pandemic. There's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of couple steps back. And then there's momentum and a couple steps back. And I think that's just going to be the norm into the new year until things do finally open up and people are comfortable.
Absolutely. And, even when it came to Amped, there were so many worries with regards to COVID. What if one of the bands has to pull out? What if Brad tested positive and couldn't come over? What would we do? Thankfully, nothing like that happened. But so much disruption at the moment. And nobody's immune to that. Everyone in the entertainment industry and certainly live music has been affected. Just hoping for next year, if we can try and find a way out of that. And it's difficult with the new variants. You just don't know what the future holds, really. And that does make things very, very difficult. But you just have to hope for the best sometimes and, hope things will work out and things do pick up.
Yeah, I think, there's this talk of a resurgence, and I do believe that there is one happening. We're at the beginning of it, but there's still a ton of work to do in rock music to capture the younger generation, which I think is really starting to happen. But that takes time. That just doesn't happen overnight. But as I've stated before, not just this interview and in this interview, is that the quality of music is there. And I think it's only a matter of time before younger people really start to pick up on it. And for you, it's got to be exciting to kind of be at the ground floor of what's happening, because I think things are just under the surface ready to take off. I really do. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is COVID based. Different parts of the world, different parts of different countries are experiencing increases in And I mean, in New York with this South African variant that they're reporting on now yesterday, they haven't even had any cases with it yet, but they've already declared a state of emergency because of the hospitals are almost at capacity right now. So there's still a lot of worry out there. I know people are getting comfortable, but and I know people say, I'm tired of COVID. Well, COVID's not tired of us yet. So, we still have to do that things. And I just hope, I know patience is a tough word to define because everyone has a different definition of it. But, these bands have worked so hard. And, I think if they can continue to be patient and continue to work hard, I think at the end of this, I think it's going to bear fruition.
I think you're right. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Hard work pays off. So let's hope that they'll have the venues to play in and the audiences to watch them.
As far as this show afterwards, what was the response from the rock community in the UK, about what you accomplished?
The response has been very good, from people that were there and from other people in the industry. You get support from those that you expect to get it from. And what's most telling is the silence that you get from the big boys, the people that you may have expected to have done something like this already, but haven't. And the lack of support. I mean, I don't know if I could say lack of support. They must know what's going on, but they keep very, very quiet. And that's very telling. You think, are they waiting to find out, see how it goes? Are they going to try and get in on the act, which I'm more than expecting and ready for? I'll be very interested to see, all being well, if it is a success, who then gets in touch saying, oh, well, we'd like to get involved with this. And, I think that could well happen. But there are definitely areas of the industry that have said very little, in fact, nothing, that you do wonder. They just think it's not worth their time, inquiring about or asking how it went or wishing me luck with. But, we'll see what happens. I've got very good memory and not that I hold grudges. And have supported me up to now. And those are the people that I'm going to want to work with in the future. So, it'll be interesting.
There will never be a shortage of people that want everyone to do the hard work, the heavy lifting, and then come in and reap the reward of someone else's hard work.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And we'll see if that happens. My guess is it will. There's a lot of people I've dealt with over the years when I was writing and reviewing, and you get to know people behind the scenes. You know the managers, you get to know the PR people, and you see how they deal with you. They see themselves as up here, and you're sort of down there, almost doing their work for them. You're publicising, you're basically getting the band's names out there, which is their job. But, writers can do that for them. And that's what we do, Right. But you're not always treated the best, So it will be interesting. That's all I'm saying on that. But generally, from those that I have heard from, the response has been only positive. Which is very much appreciated. We'll see what happens.
What's next? I mean, you mentioned them now. You got to get the finished product done. You've got to put together a plan to kind of market this. What's next for you? What's going to happen?
Next for me, well, I've set up a company. So I'm now the director of my own company, which is very lovely.
That's awesome.
And very, very exciting. So that is basically to deal with the corporate side of things, to deal with the finances, to deal with contracts, all the boring stuff that has to be done, unfortunately. So, so that's now been established, for this to work. And then working out funding. Like I said, I have secured funding. So, we need to sort of iron out the details of that. Behind the scenes things with, the mechanics of it, the financial side, how is it actually going to run? Once all that's been sorted out and we have the funds, it's then going to be negotiations with television stations, which we have lined up to talk to. So hopefully that will go well. And we're looking at having a sort of a worldwide, ideally licensed all over the place. So it's not just for a British audience. I want it out in America. I want it in Australia, Canada, Europe. I'd love this all over the world, this show. So we've got an international element to the show as well, with new music videos from across the globe. So I definitely think it should have appeal, worldwide, hopefully. So those are the main things then, finances, pinpointing the stations it's going to be on, and then organising days and bands and figuring out when we're actually going to shoot the series. So, yeah.
Sounds like an education.
It is, yeah. it is an education. You got to do everything in the right order, but it all kind of becomes apparent as you go along. So you think, I can't do that bit until I've done this. So there's a path you have to follow and all the steps you have to take. And I've had a business before. I when I was doing personal training, so I've done a little bit of the business side of things, very different to this. But yeah, you as long as everything is covered and you don't leave any stone unturned, then hopefully we'll be in a good position to get a series filmed.
Is the primary focus now getting this off the ground, and are you going to be taking a step back from maybe talking with bands and interviewing bands because you're solely focused on getting this, because this is a big this is a big animal. I mean, this is a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean that this is definitely my focus. The other thing that I want to continue and that I'm doing even more of next year is the festivals. Okay. Now, I absolutely love them. The ones I did this year, it was so much fun. The atmosphere, chatting to the bands. So that I definitely want to do again. The remote interviews I'll be doing for YouTube, yeah, I'm not going to be doing as much as that now. It's definitely going to be focused on AMT and festivals. So I've got my first one coming up. First festival next year is early March, and I've got one, I think, the end of March and April. They're throughout the year, from spring till autumn. And I'm doing a few this year that I've been asked to do that I haven't done before. So that's exciting as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, festivals are like becoming the big norm because people, you get a bigger audience. You can get sponsorship at these festivals. You can do all these things.
The merch, right, mainly, and it's the bigger audience. So, yeah, that's what they're getting out of it.
Merch is the game, I mean,
yeah.
As long as they can stay on tour. And I think that's a good thing for music fans, because there's so much music coming out. There's so much music that bands are hanging on to as well. So they can keep touring on new music, whether they release a single, an EP, a full length. I think a lot of them have a lot in the tank so they can stay on the road and sell merch and make themselves a presence, because I think now into probably the next few years, it's going to be very vital for the survival of a lot of these bands.
Yeah, I mean, there's bands that have stopped. They've literally said they put an announcement on Facebook they're having to quit for whatever reason. I mean, the financial pressures must be crazy. The amount of traveling they do if they're touring. I honestly don't know how they pay. I don't know how they manage to survive doing that. They'll be taking time off work. They all have day jobs. They'll be taking time off work to do the tours. travel expenses, petrol, accommodation. I really don't know. I'm amazed actually that so many of the bands are able to continue, and the cost of producing records as well, recording studios. Yeah, I mean, the cost must be astronomical actually. But yeah, you know, they manage, they keep going, and which is so commendable. Yeah. And you know, hopefully, I don't think people realise. You know, most people who go to gig, they don't realise all the expenses that the bands have to pay out, and how difficult it really is, and how little they're paid to do the shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anne, it's been a blast having this conversation. It's really enjoyed it, and so happy for you. So happy for Amped and the possibilities and your success in getting to this point. I know you chuckle when I say that, but I really do mean that you should definitely look at it as a great accomplishment to just be where you're at right now and continue.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, everybody, that's Anne Estella. You can check her out on social media at Anne Estella. Is it at Anne Estella UK?
No, Anne Estella Rocks.
Okay.
No.
So check her out. Follow on Twitter. Look for updates on Amped as she moves forward. And let's all keep our fingers crossed that this does become something, because I think it's definitely a great thing. And I can't wait to see it, because I've heard feedback from a couple of people that were there and they said it was awesome. So I definitely want to check it out. So I can't wait. But Anne, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me again. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it.
Always, always. All right, everybody. I'm Jay Scott. That's Anne Estella. This is The Hook Rocks. Take care of each other. Stay safe, and we will talk again soon.
And I ain't got nothing to lose, so we can talk about it all over again. The more we talk about it, further it will get. Nothing left to answer for. Go ahead and give me more. Imagination on the edge, but I'm living with no regrets. Don't look at me. You know I'm not easy to please. Don't fuck with me. I know you love being a tease, so we can talk about it all over again. The more we talk about it, further it will get. Nothing left to answer for. Go ahead and give it more.
300 Favorite Albums with James Campion.
I don't think there's an album I know better front to back. I learned how to play guitar to a lot of these songs.
If I could pick one record to hand someone and say, this is what it feels like to be a woman, it would be this record.
You know, the engineer that was recording the album for us was a novice engineer. He was really the janitor.
The first half of these sessions for the album were totally improvisatory, in the sense that they went into the studio and just dealt with whatever happened.
There was space that was left for these listeners to kind of discover it for themselves. That they would say, yeah, my parents listened to it, but I had to build my own relationship to it.
Happiness, good living, peace, love, rock and roll. I just feel like this album is such a wonderful translation of that concept.
People understood they were in a world historical moment, and it felt like it was going to last forever. In fact, the infinite spaces that they explored in The Giant Now is part of what made that explosion so huge.